Hey folks, Joe here from Charting Store. It's Monday the 15th of May, and here's the update I promised you last week. I couldn't really do it. Last week I was super busy, and on the weekend I just had to get out and went on a little trip. So here we are. We're going to have a look at the DAX, a very quick look at the US markets, and also the CAC, the French CAC, the FTSE, and the EUROSTOXX. They actually run much clearer, in my understanding, than the DAX. And we're going to start off with the DAX, and I got asked that quite a lot now, and now I made a chart for you. It's a possible diamond top. And first of all, I don't really like that idea because it's running out of my main idea, and because timing would take too long, and there hasn't been really a confirmation here on that lower boundary. These diamonds, they like to be symmetrical. In other words, that angle or that confirmation we had like here on that upper boundary, like once, twice, here third time, and we had like 4 touches here on the lower line. They like to duplicate that to the right side, and if I duplicate that to the right side, we get something like that, and that is just running out of my timing. So that's the first point. And then as long as we don't get like a confirmation here at the lower boundary, that would be around 15,730. I don't see it happening yet. Once we just pop out of here and making new highs, that thing becomes invalidated, and we just can wipe that out of our charts. Moving on with my level chart, hourly chart based on the cash, and what you see here first of all is that in red descending broadening wedge, which got triggered this morning, and now we are just doing that regular pullback back into that support zone now, that gap zone. And if that thing works out, we are seeing targets like the minimum would be 16,176, and the 100% move would be at 16,218, and then we're actually getting very close to these gaps just below that all-time high out of January from last year. And we also have like a few other targets here from another inverted shoulder pattern, and also that 100% target of that range we are in for the last 3 to 4 weeks. And this morning I just saw another bullish pattern, which is called a cap and handle. We had actually a nice retest of that neckline this morning, another one, and then we just started to drop below it. However, there are also targets with a new high. We're moving one time frame up into a 4-hour chart, and I think my latest update was somewhere here, and I wasn't really sure because they had like 3 different alternatives for counting that entire move since these lows we made here in March. But what I said for the last 3 weeks, most likely there are going to be a lot of fake outs to either side until May 14th, and that's what actually happened. And that's also very typical for a sideways running 4, and we actually went sideways in the flat, in my understanding, and we most likely found a bottom for wave 4 here at on the 4th of May, and that could be our final move now to the upside as wave 5. So I prefer that count, that blue count, and we probably could move that C all the way up here if we are seeing new highs. And we are going straight into the daily. What you see here, I was twittering that like many times, a so-called inside candle of May 3rd. And since then, we haven't really moved anywhere. We are just moving sideways, like what we did for the last 4 weeks. That one day actually was the move of the entire range. And so we still have these boundaries at 16,011 and 15,707 to the downside. And the funny thing is, last week, the weekly candle was actually within the previous week, and which makes it inside bar also on the weekly. And the upper boundary is basically the same, but the lower one is at 15,662. Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing. As soon as we jump out of here to the upside or downside, doesn't really matter in which direction. Usually that candle here, it gets duplicated to the up or downside, which is also our range. So that would bring us somewhere near the all-time highs or somewhere into that 15,400 area. We're going to stay with the daily, and what you see here are plenty of negative divergences on several different indicators. Even the crossing took place here. The RSI is actually the worst. We have a negative divergence since December last year, and it became actually worse during this year. And yeah, we keep moving up, and also have a look at that these Bollinger Bands. The funny thing is that these boundaries of these bands are the same boundaries as our range, and also of that inside candle we made on May 2nd. And usually when they contract that bad, there is usually a big move coming up. And what I've seen in the past quite a lot, the first move is not the real move, or we are not seeing the big move too. So we probably get my favorite scenario that we are moving up somewhere above 16,000 and then we turn around if these divergences remain. And this is actually a very interesting chart here. It doesn't really matter at what time frame you look at. This is a 4-hour time frame. You also can have a look at the daily. This is a time here in Feb into March, and you see you had like a similar negative divergence here, and you had that positive crossing at the end of that range, and out of a sudden it started to rally very impulsively, and I think we shocked a lot of sellers before we actually turned around. So that crossing was actually fake. And the funny thing is, what happened now, we also have a range, not as big as this one. We tried to bottom here or retest these highs out of March and Feb, and out of a sudden we started to rally. And now the question is this going to be something similar to that in a similar amount of time? Well, we actually are moving already a bit longer, but since my FIP trading tool actually triggered on the daily base on cash close, actually it's based on, since we closed above 15,821, it triggered targets, which is our 127 expansion at 16,192, and the second target is at 16,342. And this one here has actually a hit rate of just below 90%, which is very high. This one here is somewhere in between 73-75% hit rate. So the chances that we run up here, or the odds are not that bad. Last DAX chart, which is our daily cycle chart. Down here you see these cycle brackets which run for 11 weeks. And what's more interesting here is the time it took for DAX to move from the bottom to the top. And since October until we topped out in December, it took 51 days. And that rally we had from December into that topping into the beginning of March took 53 days. And just in case DAX is doing that again, it could take even longer into the beginning of June, just to keep that in mind. I don't prefer that, because that cycle bottom here is suggested at the beginning or in mid-June, and also the weekly cycle. I won't show that for now, but the weekly cycle also wants some kind of bottom in mid-June. Yeah, just a quick look at the US markets daily chart here on the Dow Jones Industrials. There's that descending broadening wedge triggered. The target here is much higher at 36,954. It's not my bias that we run all the way up here. I still believe that we run into that 35,000 area before we turn around, and that would actually trigger this nice bearish Wilbur wave wedge. And in case Dow Jones is doing so, it should pull back somewhere into the 32,000 area again. And having a look at these cycles, the Dow actually wants a low here somewhere at the beginning of June. And the S&P 500, that was my daily chart. You have that symmetrical triangle which got triggered here, and it actually went for that red drag, but by now there are also some people seeing a diamond topping here, which could be the case. However, I think there is another sharp move coming up into that 42.50 area before that thing turns around. This one here wants a low in July. And the last one for the US is the NASDAQ. This one here is based on the futures. You have the same on the cash market, that very nice bearish Wilbur wave wedge. And also here I would like to see higher price levels into 13,500 before we turn around. A cycle low is suggested here at the beginning of June. This is more short term. On the longer term, we want to see a cycle low somewhere in mid-June. So this one is very similar to the DAX cycle, and there's also that large RSI divergence which could hit here a third time on that falling trend line, which makes that divergence even stronger. Yeah, and a quick look at the FTSE weekly time frame. The big count could be seen as completed. Once we move into the smaller time frames, there's still room to the upside. However, there's also a low suggested at the end of June. And here that move on the 4-hour time frame, that rally which started at the end of March, and there is one last wave missing to the upside, which could bring us into that 80.44 area at the FTSE. Similar story at the CAC. The CAC is just running out of time, and I'm pretty sure it will overshoot here into these cycles. However, it actually it made a new all-time high, and it stalled right in our resistance zone on the weekly. But once we move into a 1-hour time frame, we had that nice bullish Wilbur wave, which missed out the target here, that target line. But it could stall here again at that red resistance. The CAC could be the only one which is finished already. Even it would fit nicer on the bigger picture if we see another all-time high or just stall just underneath it. And the EUROSTOXX, we're just going to have a look at the 4-hour time frame. Same story here. We have a nice 1, 2, 3 count. We most likely had wave 4 finished here at the beginning of May, and now we could run in a zigzag or like an ending diagonal pattern for new highs. Yeah, next time I'm going to show you also a few stocks, especially the big 5 or big 6 out of the NASDAQ, because it's quite interesting that the broader market is not participating in that latest rally, especially in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, and all these indexes are like just being held up by these big 5 names basically, and they all have bearish patterns as well, and also on their cycles it looks like they want to see a summer low. So that's about it. I keep you informed on Twitter, and if you leave me a like or a nice comment, I would appreciate that a lot. Thanks.